Hi, I'm Lara Shannon and this is Darcy, and you may see our little foster pup Vindy pop up from time to time. Today I want to chat around reactivity and anxiety. It's a really big issue that many dog owners have to face. It's a really tough one to deal with, so I'm not going to be able to solve all your problems today for those real severe cases, but hopefully I can give you some tips and tricks on how to treat some mild anxiety, and particularly the one where our dogs react to other people, other dogs and objects, which can be really tough if you are taking your dog away caravanning or camping with you, because the last thing we want is our dog barking, lunging, carrying on every time that another dog or person goes past our van. Now, first and foremost, we need to understand that there are a few reasons why our dogs might be acting out or feeling anxious. Generally, what happens if a dog does react to a trigger in a negative way, it's either because they've never been exposed to that trigger before during that critical period of development, which is that first 4 months of a dog's life. It is really important. So if you've got a puppy, please do it now. It's important that we really do expose our dogs to as many different things as possible that they are going to encounter as an adult dog, and that it's done in a really positive and calm way. So in those first 16 weeks of their life, we want to make sure that they meet as many different breeds, types, sizes of dogs as possible and have really good interactions with them. Different people, ages, shapes, sizes, nationalities, wheelchairs, bikes, skateboards, children riding past on them, and really, creating a positive association using treats, praise for calm behaviour in that early critical period of development, because 80% of their memories are formed during that time, good or bad. So this is often a reason, therefore, that we do see many adult dogs, and particularly a lot of rescue dogs, and as is the case with Vindy here, that they've had a negative association or zero association during that critical period. So if your dog has a tendency to react to other dogs and people, the big thing that we also want to make sure that we don't do, and also, say they have separation anxiety and you find that they're displaying some of those real obvious signs, which you might not even realize are obvious, such as toileting in the house when you're not there, and even when they are toilet trained. It's really important that we don't punish our dogs for reacting in this way if it's coming from a place of anxiety. So for example, if your dog does tend to react, you see another dog in the distance, your dog starts carrying on and you start telling them off, that's actually going to make it worse. Either they're going to shut down, or they're going to get even more aggressive, or it's just going to create this bigger negative association with it. Instead, we want to be able to create a positive association with the trigger, so that our dog learns that good things happen when that trigger is around, and that's what we want to overcome, and that's really what we want to teach them. So a big program to really address major reactivity and aggression, for example, is a desensitization program. Now, I'm not going to go into this because it's really tough and you are going to need the help of a professional, but there's two videos that you can look at for further information around reactivity and aggression. One is the method about constantly treating them and creating a positive association with that trigger, and the other one is creating more distance for non-reacting and getting them out of a situation, and then slowly increasing the distance that they can get to their trigger without reacting. So two videos to have further look at for that. But ultimately, what it is we're trying to do is we're trying to stop a negative reaction in the first place. And the way to do that is to know the signs of anxiety in your dog and in other people's dogs. All too often, I'll see a dog walking along and I can see that they're feeling anxious. They're licking their lips, it's tongue flicking. They might give a little yawn. A yawn that's out of context generally indicates anxiety. The obvious one is the tail tucked underneath the legs, of course. Ears flat and back or cowering, they're real obvious signs, but it is those little ones like the tongue flicking and the yawning, which if we pick them up in our own dog or other people's dogs, we know not to get them closer towards their trigger, knowing that they are going to react, and instead seeing those early signs and quickly either getting them out of there, so increasing distance from their trigger so that they don't go over their threshold and are forced to react, or using something that they find that you can easily break their attention with and get their attention back on you so that they're not interacting with that trigger and therefore not going to react. Now, the problem we have with a lot of dogs that have been allowed to react, have a go, you've pulled them back, they've been punished, or they're just constantly doing it. It's constantly being reinforced, and anything that is reinforced in a dog or rewarded occurs with more intensity and frequency. So you might not even realize that your dog is being rewarded when it's lunging and growling and barking at other dogs, but generally what happens is the other dog or the person moves away. So in your dog's brain, it has been that action of lunging and having a go at the other dog or person that has actually rewarded them in their brain because it's got the threat away from them. So we want to make sure that we're not allowing it to happen in the first place. A good way to do this, you're going to turn your back on the camera, are you, mate? A good way to do this is to teach your dog the look at me technique. So to do that, basically, you might get a treat if they're into treats, or if they're into squeaky balls, using that. And basically, you get it down to their nose, bring it up to your eyes, look at me. Yes, good boy. And marking that behavior. So they start to learn, look at me equals a reward. Yes, good boy. And then what happens if you've got a really good look at me, and look, the same can occur if you've got a really good sit on your dog, by putting them into an alternative command. Dogs can't do two things at once. So they might look at their trigger and then you've gone, look at me, or you've squeaked the ball, they're immediately looking back at you and they're not able to react. So that's a real simple technique. If you have got a really good skill, or yes, good boy, squeaky toy, for example, to get their attention back to you so they're not able to react to the other dog. And that's what we want to really make sure we are doing every single time if we can. And then that way they don't get into that habit of reacting. Another one, of course, is to just give them the distance that they really want. So you might see their trigger, it might be another dog in the distance. So what you want to do is you just calmly acknowledge it. You don't try not to let your dog even know. They might look over. You've seen some signs of anxiety, some of those early signs in your dog. Rather than panicking or keep on walking towards the trigger or picking them up, instead, again, you could use the look at me, and then, or you just basically calmly cross the road or walk the other way, or use that distraction technique to stop it and walk the other way, because generally the dog wants a distance from their trigger. That's all they're after. That's why they're reacting. So that's what we use to get them away from their trigger, just calmly walking away. Now, the reason why as well, I see a few people, they see a trigger, say it's a German Shepherd with Darcy, he reacts to German Shepherds, he's had a negative experience as a puppy. So guaranteed, if I had him off the lead and there was a German Shepherd coming towards us on lead, Darcy's likely to fly at it. Now, I know that. So if I saw the German Shepherd was about to react itself, or was even looking or displaying any of those anxiety signs, there's a good chance that he's going to be in a whole lot of trouble. So I would use pretty much, because if he's noticed it and he's already started towards it, I have to use the squeaky ball to get his attention back to me, yes, and then I get him out of there. All right, so it's really important that we really break it really early on. So this is really important at dog parks and off-leash areas as well. So if your dog has a bit of anxiety, look for those signs, but also in other people's dogs. If you see those signs, don't let your dog run up to them. There is nothing worse than a person allowing their dog, even if their dog is perfectly fine, to run up to another dog, because you don't know how that other dog is feeling. And that's when a lot of dog fights do break out. So we want to make sure we're always watching our own dogs for those signs, but also other people's dogs, so that if we see a dog's looking a little bit anxious, we give them space. We don't go up to them. We create that distance, because that owner might not actually realize their dog has anxiety. So let's do it for them and be really responsible. When it comes to off-leash parks and dog beaches and the like, and any common areas at camping grounds or caravan parks where you can let your dog off lead, there's some real tips to help keep you and your dog safe. Now, number one is making sure that you don't stand around in the middle of the dog park talking. I see it all the time, and it is one of the melting pots for dog attacks because the dogs are all getting, they might be playing, but there's too many dogs all playing together. Their adrenaline starts to rise, and then someone gets fed up or someone gets jealous because they're playing with their buddy, and bang, attacks break out. So make sure that you keep yourself and your dog moving, because if they're being active and they're being kept busy, they haven't got time to get bored or allow their adrenaline to get too high that a dog attack will occur. Same goes for being on your phone. No texting as you're walking along. Pay attention to your dog and pay attention to other people's dogs as well. And just be mindful of dog behavior and fair play too. So when you are away, making sure that one dog is not dominating the play more than other. Good play between dogs is them taking turns, mimicking each other. They might even run up, tag them and run away, inviting them to chase them. That's different to a dog constantly nipping on someone else's heels. But a tag and play is really good, as is that play bow request. So make sure you're looking for all those good behavior signs when you're at the dog park or off-leash area. And if your dog does tend to be the one that dominates a bit or takes over and is holding the other dog, and they're not taking turns fairly, then you need to really get on top of your dog's behavior and really make sure that you're not allowing your dog to be a bully. And likewise, if you see another dog being a bully or, even just taking over, ask the owner to just remove them for a little while. We want to see if adrenaline does get a little bit high, we want to see the dogs taking a break, shaking themselves off, and then they're generally okay to play again. So on that, it is really important to remember that most reactivity is fear-based aggression. So dogs aren't wanting to attack. Generally, it's coming from a place of anxiety. So if the adrenaline has got a bit high or one dog's feeling anxious and a fight has broken out, it's hard to remember sometimes, I know, but don't go putting your hand in there, because you are likely to get bitten even by your own dog, because they're in such a frenzy state. They just have no concept. Everything is seen as a threat, so they will attack whatever's around them. Instead, use your lead, use a water bottle, use your jumper, whatever it is, try and throw it, not hard to hurt them, but throw it in the middle of the dogs, try and really break their attention like this to distract their attention and stop it, because generally dogs don't want to fight, so just by distracting them, you've got a better chance of breaking up the fight than what you are going in there yourself. Another big one, which is the really tough one, is separation anxiety. So obviously the good thing is you're taking your dog away with you, so that's sort of overcoming one big part of the problem of your dog being left home alone. But you might want to pop next door to the neighbour's caravan for a wine and give your dog some independence time to just chill out by themselves in the caravan. So it's really important that we do give our dogs some time alone. So number one, again, this has been a really tough year. A lot of dogs have been constantly 24/7 with their owners and have severe separation anxiety, which Vindy does. And unfortunately, it is rubbing off a little on Darcy. So we want to make sure that they do have some time alone, but using things like interactive toys to keep their brains and bodies moving. Now, a big thing for anxiety, one technique to overcome it is just making sure that our dogs are actually tired and are physically exhausted. It helps stop boredom as well as anxiety. We want to make sure that their exercise regime is at its maximum. When you go away, you can go two ways. You could either be exercising your dog more, or you could kick back and relax a bit more. But our dogs do need daily exercise, and it can be up to 2 hours depending on the dog's age or breed. But we want to make sure that they're physically having that, but also their brains are kept busy, because this is really important with anxiety as well. So interactive toys are great. If your dog isn't into interactive toys, a snuffle mat is really good, or even just hiding some treats or even their kibble around the caravan park or the campground, so they've got to use their brain to figure out how they're going to get their food and tap into that sense of smell. A really big thing I say to people is don't feed your dog, particularly if you feed them a dry kibble, don't feed them in a dog bowl. You're wasting a great opportunity to tap into your dog's most important sense, their sense of smell, and get them scenting around, hunting for their food. It releases endorphins, it makes them feel good, and also keeps them mentally and physically stimulated, and is a great way to add in, a good 30 minutes extra exercise or at least brain games into their day. So it's really important we keep their brains and bodies active. things like the Adaptol for dogs and Feel Away for cats. This is a pheromone spray. There's also diffusers that you can leave on in the van, or collars for dogs that can put on them before you go away on your holiday. They last about a month each time. And basically these have a pheromone in them which mimics that of what a mother dog emits to her puppies to make them feel calm and secure. So using this may help as part of the treatment, along with some of these other things like the interactive toys and exercise. If your dog has some noise phobias as well as separation anxiety, thunder shirts can be really good. It's basically a weighted jacket that wraps around them so it feels like they're being held. But the great thing about using that instead of you holding and picking up your dog is you're not reinforcing that fear in them. If your dog's feeling a bit worried about a thunderstorm, Darcy gets thunderstorm and noise phobia. If he's reacting and I pick him up and go, shh, shh, oh, it's okay, in his brain, he's actually got more reason to worry because I'm kind of panicking and I'm just reinforcing to him that there is something to be worried about. Whereas thunder shirts are not you actually holding them, but it gives them that same feeling. So have a look into that if your dog does have a bit of anxiety and separation anxiety as well. If it's rather severe though, you will need to speak to a vet or a vet behaviourist ideally, as well as a dog trainer, because medication may be required. Often medication is the first go-to, is not the solution. Trying the whole raft of tools to help address separation anxiety, to keep them busy, is a great way to start. And then looking at medication in case the levels are so high that we need to get those stress hormones down a bit, so that you can then really concentrate on teaching them some of these other techniques to help cope with being on their own. And obedience training is really good as well for helping dogs with anxiety, because if they've got fear-based aggression, obedience training, if you're really good at it, you know, using that alternative command such as a sit or a drop can allow you to stop your dog in its tracks, get their concentration back on you so that you can get them away from the threat. But also, again, with separation anxiety, doing a bit of obedience training, again, works their brain, which is just good for any dog as well. So there's some of the different kinds of anxiety, some of the tips and tricks to help. Good luck. There are some videos that you can refer to just to get a bit more information about some of those specific topics, as well as plenty of articles on poochersatplay.com. Happy travels.